is the Keenan Pilly news. Is it news is what I want to ask Jimmy, because the fact that he wants to come back and will be able to come back by the NCAA, those are two different questions altogether. So I wanted to get Jimmy's insight, because I think he would be a monstrous addition, needless to say. So, Jimmy, what do you think of the NCAA and Pilly? Do you think they'll allow him to come back, or is this something like you and I used to cover back in the day that drags on into August, and eventually Philip Fulmer is coming out and he's saying, I can't believe the NCAA is doing that. I just have no faith in the NCAA. So I'm not sure that was a news story quite yet until the NCAA says, okay, what's your take?
Asking me to predict the NCAA would be like asking me to pick how many stars are in the sky every night. Who the hell knows? Now, having said that, and I look at the Des Walker situation at North Carolina, I think that's his name, the guy that should have been granted eligibility right away, and they waited 4 games and said they had new information. The new information was a threatened lawsuit. So I think with Pili, I actually think he's going to get another year, and here's why. If you look at all the players, and there are a number of them that have had 7th year in the NCAA, it's because of an injury-related situation. It's a medical red shirt. They will grant you multiple medical red shirts. There have been players like Tennessee recently had a 7th-year guy. There was a transfer in from California who was a defensive lineman. His 7th year was played at Tennessee. So because of that, I think there's a better than 50-50 chance the NCAA is going to grant Pili another year because it will be a medical red shirt.
Yeah, Caleb, I'll tell you this, too. I mean, he's had 2 season-ending injuries, plus he took 2 years to go on his Mormon mission. I mean, if there's ever an example of a dude that deserves another year, even with the COVID situation, it's him, right?
Absolutely. Now, just want to get this out so people know what's going on. Pili transferred from BYU last year, suffered a season-ending injury in the opener against Virginia, and then we were seeing if he would have a year. We were wondering if he would want a year of eligibility. Well, 247 Sports reported yesterday, sources are saying that he does want another year of eligibility. That's where this all is coming from. So if that's true, then the question does become the NCAA. Yeah, it would be hard for me to see the NCAA not giving him a 7th year, given who they've given other people a 7th year of eligibility to. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you're right. His background, his leadership, the fact that how do you not give a guy like Keenan Pilly 7th year of eligibility? It just, I don't see how they wouldn't do it. So, and just from a football perspective, this is huge. I mean, Jimmy, Dave, you guys can give me your thoughts. I would have listed Keenan Pilly as one of the 3 people Tennessee can't afford to lose at the beginning of the year, and they lost him in the opener. And they never replaced him at middle linebacker. I think we all respect Elijah Herring and his effort, but I don't think he's equipped to play middle linebacker in the SEC. So it's
not only do I agree with that, but to me, he was one of the 3 most important that they need to have returned, that are eligible to return, along with Cooper Mays and Brew McCoy.
That's a 3 I had, Jimmy, and I wrote about a great minds think alike. And Jimmy, I think a lot of people are basing their thoughts on Keenan Pilly over what you and you've reported and other people have reported, because we haven't seen a lot of him on the field. But what did you hear about Keenan Pilly before the injury, before he even took the field? Because I heard nothing but just incredible things. And one of those guys that walks on campus, and this rarely happens, and you're a starter. You walk on campus and you're ready to go.
Yeah, I heard nothing but great things about him. His leadership, his maturity. He's 25 years old. He walked on campus. He understood their scheme, their system. And this is a guy that Tennessee had plugged him as a starter almost from the get-go. Not only is he very good, he's very smart. And he had control of that locker room, which was also impressive for a guy that young. He would, if they'd had team captains, I think he'd have been voted one of them, even in the short period of time he'd been there. So I think his addition would be incredible. Not only do I think he can be a very good football player, but at a position of dire need. When you lose Beasley from the linebacker core, and I didn't think the linebackers played that well this year. If you add Pili to that group, I think that would be massive for this defense.
Yeah, and the other one that you mentioned, Brew McCoy, I guess I just kind of assumed that he was going to come back, but he went through the senior day festivities. Do you have any read on Brew McCoy right now?
I don't. The injury situation, I think he's one that's more in tune to seeing what what kind of NFL draft status they can get on him. Now, I don't think he's going to be a real high draft pick upcoming based on the injury, but I also don't think he's going to run a real good 40 time. And I think the NFL scouts are in love with people that have great speed, and I don't think he does. He would be more of a Juwan Jennings type receiver, a physical guy, possession guy, a really good competitor. But so I think there's a chance he's going to come back just based on what I think he should do for himself. But if the NFL draft projection comes back and they've got him going in the second or third round, he's going to go pro. But I don't think that they will project him that high.
Well, and yeah, Juwan Jennings is one of many Tennessee players that fell way too low in the draft compared to where he should have gone. The number 15 has always been reserved for the most physical Tennessee wide receiver, I feel like, from Kelly Washington to Juwan Jennings to Brew McCoy.
Interesting point.
Yeah. So, Jimmy, moving on to other people, we talked a little bit yesterday about the offensive line. John Campbell Jr. returning, it to me is pretty big. Mm-hmm. I don't see any way Gerald Mincey doesn't return. I don't think he can enter the draft right now. So the question comes down to the interior, which I think are the two best blockers, which is Cooper Mays and Javontez Spraggins. Where do you think they stand right now in terms of where do you think? I think Spraggins will come back and Cooper's totally up in the air. But what do you think?
I think Spraggins will come back. I did have a chance to talk to him the Monday after he suffered that Saturday injury. I asked him if he was looking forward to the draft. And he said, well, I was until the injury. He said, now that's up in the air. I've got a decision to make. And he won't be ready for the NFL beginning of the season anyway because of his torn MCL. So he's going to have to sit out a while. I think he feels like he might be better served to come back to Tennessee. And he may not be able to play 12 games next year. He may not be ready until October, possibly. But I think he feels like he ought to come back and have a good year to improve his draft stock. So I think he's coming back. I think Mays is coming back. You guys would know better because y'all have him on. But I think he's coming back. A part of that, the hint was he didn't go through run through the T on Senior Day with that group. And I think he feels like he could possibly help his draft stock as well. So I think he's coming back. I don't know that. That's just a guess on my part.
This is nothing that Cooper has told me because I purposely tried to stay away from this a little bit, Jimmy. But I think, and rightly so, he feels like that whatever his NIL money was this year should be a little higher next year because we all saw what happened in Gainesville.
And I think it should be and will be. Now, but how much higher?
I don't know. I have a very specific budget. I'm about maxed out on Coop, but I could probably throw a little bit in.
So well, Jimmy, you're the key to whether he comes back or not.
I actually meant to ask Jimmy about that. So from NIL, how much do you weigh keeping Cooper Mays, then Walter Nolan in the transfer portal? We talked about this the other day. How much would you open the NIL budget for Walter Nolan? Does that outweigh everybody else that Tennessee could target in the transfer portal?
Well, first off, they've already paid him.
They've already paid Walter Nolan? Well, I thought A&M did.
Well, Tennessee, he was part of the NCAA investigation. There were some
extra
benefits that were paid to him.
Wait, he was part of the investigation
when
he was a recruit in 2020?
Yeah.
I missed that.
He was a focal point of that. There were several $1,000s funneled that direction for visits and whatever. So, which brings, I wondered and I don't think they will, but I wonder if the SEC will say, no, you can't go back to Tennessee. You were part of that. See, there were a bunch of players. There was Eric Gray and a number of others that got a bunch of money, all right, for a variety of things.
Eric Gray was like the feature one, I remember.
And he was as a player. Nolan was as a recruit. So anyway, would I put a lot of money into getting Walter Nolan more than I would in getting Cooper Mays? I would not. I would not do that. And one reason is, and I think this has happened at A&M. A&M did that with that recruiting class, and it tore up the locker room. There was a lot of dissension about veteran players not getting as much as some of these incoming players. I would be very careful of that. Would I want to get some money to Walter Nolan to bring him here? Yes. Would I pay him $100,000 more than Cooper Mays? No.
Interesting. And you have Juice Wells, who is flirting with Tennessee, that I've been told, does he make a visit? We shall see. There's a lot going on, but Tennessee, I think, could use help at wide receiver, especially depending on what happens with Brew McCoy.